Really freaks me out, that sound. Okay, so yeah, today I am going to talk about using Corpora to aid in writing. And let's go. So first, I'm going to talk about what Corpora are, what collocation is, and some ways that you can teach new words. So first, what are corpora? Largely, corpora are large principled collections of naturally occurring examples of language stored electronically. In the past, this used to be done by hand, but modern days, thankfully, it is electronic. And you can create a corpus of anything. There's a Harry Potter corpus, there's a coronavirus corpus, there's a now corpus that's updated very regularly. So you can see most recent trends. The electronic corpora are easily searchable, but the problem with these are they can't analyze themselves. So researchers need to help that. How can you use them? You can use them to help students better understand how to correctly use collocates. Check for connotations, like is a word a negative or a positive word. You can look for grammatical patterns, which are colligations. You can see where and when a word is used, which could also be part of colligations. And they can also infer a meaning of a word from concordance lines. And once again, you can create word lists specifically for like English has a specific purpose. Okay. Why should they be used to teach writing? Well, they can help correct previously observed mistakes in student writing, and they can also be used to introduce lexical bundles, like 3 to 4 word formulaic language that's quite often used by experts. And also they're good for helping understand multi-word expressions, to help improve the writing fluency, or to help the learner know how to use specific phrases, or just to help, well, in general, to help write better. And there are things that are already developed, like the academic formula list, which was developed by Simpson, Block, and Ellis in 2010. It's divided into speaking and writing, just a writing and just a speaking. So this is the speaking one. So if you were going to introduce these lexical bundles in like an academic writing class, you could see which ones are most common. The most frequent are at the top, and then it would go down. So on the other hand, due to the fact, on the other hand, the. But you can already see by number 3 that even the shorter bundles, on the other hand, are in the longer bundles, like the multiple word ones. Okay. So you can also introduce this during a writing class. Also, why you should use Corpora as learning tools? Well, Cobb said that when students met a word through the computer game activities, and they looked at the concordance-based entries, it showed that the concordance entries had less decay than just learning definitions. So this is also a good way to learn vocabulary, and hopefully the learners can maintain it over a longer time. Also, Bolton found that it doesn't matter what the learning styles are. So any learning style can use this. So the two corpora that I work with quite often that are easily searchable are Sketch Engine for language learning. I like using this one with the students if I'm asking them to search because the concordance lines are easier to understand than on Coca. The interface is a lot simpler and you don't need to log in. So sometimes students are not the best at creating accounts. So to avoid having to explain that, if they can use Skell, no problem. The good thing about the COCA, Corpus of Contemporary American English, is that you can get more detailed information and you can compare it also with different corpora. So you can compare it with like the BNC as well if you want to see what's the difference between American English and British English. So there are many different corpora on englishcorpora.org. And also, this works better to get examples for lower frequency words. So Skell is good for higher frequency words, the kind of easier words, and it will give more information. But when you get to like lesser frequency words, you can get concordance lines, but you can't get like what adjectives are associated with it. or other things like that. Okay. When you're designing material, things that you should think about are, well, one, give students a hypothesis, something that, like, before you have them do a corpus search, ask them what they would think, what words would be used, and then have them do the search, and then afterwards ask them what did they find out. Also, that you need to help them with scaffolding. So as a teacher, you need to tell them what they need to do, how they should look at it and explain it. Also, you should think about why you're using the corpora. Like if you want to teach something for ESP, you would just teach like specific words. So you could just create your own list and then have students go through those words. Also, you should think about how advanced your student skills are. This is because if they're reading concordance lines, if the words around the word you want them to look up are really difficult, they're not going to be able to understand it. Also, understanding their skills with computers is important as well. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about what colligations are, and then we're going to go over some examples together. So colligations are grammatical patterns that would appear and how the word is connected to its environment. So quite often we understand that there's a priming associated with a specific genre to produce a natural sounding text. When you don't use these primings to produce original text, it might not be grammatically wrong, but it's going to sound weird to a native speaker. Right. Okay, so as I said, this presentation is a bit on the interactive side, and if you want to answer a question, you can always raise your hand or turn on your microphone. So which is more likely to see in a fairy tale? Would you see A, there was a knight who rode on a pale horse once upon a time, or once upon a time there was a knight who rode on a pale horse? See some answers in the chat, mostly B's. Okay, everyone says B. All right, yeah, that's because the answer is B. Because we know as native speakers from our experience of listening to all these stories that it's going to start with once upon a time. That's just because this is the way we prefer it. There's really no other explanation. So how about this word? Where would erroneous most likely be used? Would it be used in academic writing, on a blog, television, spoken language, fiction, newspaper, or magazine? Okay, so you can either answer in the chat, turn on your microphone, raise your hand. Anything's okay. Okay, so I see some newspapers or academic. Okay. All right, so maybe it's going to be used in the New Yorker. All right. Fox News. Okay, Fox News is always interesting. All right, so if we look at a search and we can look at a chart, we can see that the bar that's the longest, it would most likely be used in a newspaper from the sample that they used. It could be used in a blog or maybe on the web, you might see it. But most likely you would see the word erroneous used in academic writing from the sample that the COCA draws from. Okay. How about this one? What words are usually associated with erroneous? What word? So is it A, B, C, or D? So I see a C. What word would correctly fill in the blank? Another C. C. Okay. Seems you have agreed upon C. Yep, that is correct. So we know it's correct by doing a keyword in context search, and we can see that this is usually followed by a noun or a conjunction. So you can see and are the conjunctions, and these are the nouns. Also, you can see here, we have assumptions. So you can do fill in the blank searches with your students as well, right? And what I would do is I would print this out for them and I wouldn't have them search the Koka. I've done it once before to not great results. Because the problem with the Koka is if they have to have an account, because if everyone's like when we were doing face-to-face classes, if everyone's in the same classroom using the same IP address, they need an account because after 10 searches, Coca won't let you search unless you have an account. The account's free, but still, this is just easier. Okay, let's try number 1. I was reading a book while he arrived or when he arrived. What do you think the answer is for number 1? Okay, for number 1, we are seeing B1. Okay. Right, well, let's try 2. I often find myself scratching my head while programming or when programming. Which is more likely, A or B? Yes, A would not be capitalized. Y would not be capitalized. Okay, so I see some A, some B. Okay. So what we can do to see if it would be A or B for these is we can do a search on Coca comparing when and while. And this is how you do a search. So you go to the page, you click compare, you put in when, you put in while, and then here's the collocates. So for this part, this can work if you're looking for a specific pronoun, or like if you're looking for pronouns or adjectives or something, you can use this to get more information. And here, this is going to show you how many words in front you want or how many words behind you want. So this is only going to look at a sentence and 2 words behind when or while. This just gave me the best result, and you learn how to do this by experience. Just do it, see what happens. Okay, and for our answers, when we use when, you can see arrived, awoke, retired, hired, challenged, encountered. So you can see some EDs, right? But when we look at while, we can see ignoring, retaining, avoiding, reducing, preserving, awaiting, blah, 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 other stuff. But you can see while is usually going to be commonly associated with a verb in the ing form, right? So the answer is, the first one was when, and the second one is while, because while would most likely be used with an ing, and when would most likely be used with an ed. Okay. All right. Another thing that students sometimes get confused is when to use during and while. So you can also do a comparison search this way as well. Okay. So let's look at number 1. Something the 1950s, there were many conflicts. So for number 1, would it be during or while? What do you think? Okay, so we've got some durings. Okay, more durings. Right, so probably the answer is during, maybe. Okay, now let's look at number 2. Doctors use personal protective equipment, something treating patients. Is it during or while? Okay, so we have while. And let's look at the search results for an answer. So when we look at during, you can see this is usually associated with a time period. When you look at while, it's going to be associated again with an ing verb quite often, providing, maintaining, looking, giving, allowing. Okay, so the answer for this one would be during, and the answer for number 2 would be while. All right. You're all very good at this. It's almost like you're native speakers or something. Okay. So my favorite, because I started teaching Aiken recently, is it I am agree or is it I agree? So you can write your answer in the chat. What do you think? So I can see an I agree. I agree. All right. I kind of made this one obviously easy. But for students, like I said, since I've been teaching Aiken, the students usually say, I am agree with. Because when you teach Aiken, the first line has to be about, I'm doing level 2, whether you agree or disagree. And what you can do is you can just show a student, this and be like, it's usually subject plus main verb and not helping verb like an auxiliary verb like am plus a main verb. Because here, if we look at the samples, this is taken from Skell, it's just subject, verb, subject, verb. Great. Now we're going to move on to collocations. So collocations are words that occur with one or two other words in particular context, and also knowledge of collocations when and where to use them is not the same across native speakers and non-native speakers of the language. And knowledge of collocations helps fluency in writing. Those with a wider variety of accurate collocational knowledge have a higher quality of writing. So once again, this goes back to like something could be grammatically correct, but when you're reading it as a native or near native, something goes in through your head where you go, this is weird, right? But you don't exactly know why. But the reason why is because your experience that you've encountered these words many times. So if collocations could be used effectively, our students would sound more natural when they're writing. So what we're going to do is another search, and we're going to look at go versus come. And what do you notice about go? Are these positive things that are associated with go or negative things associated with go? So we have a negative, negative. Oh, let's look. Go wrong, go bankrupt, go crazy, go nuts, go mad, go blind, go extinct. Maybe these are pretty negative, right? How about come? Is it positive, negative, or neither? Or do you see any pattern here? What would it be connected to? So maybe it's a bit mixed, kind of neutral. Well, some things you can see here, come true, come alive. That's not bad. Come equipped, that could be okay. But you can also see some time things: January, summer, November, February, November again. So time periods could also be associated as well. So from the search, it's possible to see that go can be associated with negative words. Because you saw like go bankrupt, go crazy. This could possibly be because we want the negative things to go away from us. Come can be associated with time and maybe some positive things like come alive, come true, because you might want some positive things to come towards you. So why this would be important: if they have a fill in the blank and they have to choose a word from like different words, a student could look at the, well, this is for a multiple choice test. They could look at a word and they could see if the word has a positive or negative connotation. And they could go, ah, this is negative, that's probably the answer, right? Okay. So let's look at another search. This is from Skell. Is the word associated with something positive, meaning, or negative? Is achieve used with a negative or positive word? So we have some positives. Okay. So this could also work for writing, and it could also work for test taking as well. So once again, the multiple choice idea: students see the word achieve. They have to think about, is the word, are the answer choices positive or negative? Any choice that would be negative in the fill in the blank question, students can go, oh, it's not this one. Also, when they're writing about achieving something, they know that it should be related to a positive effect instead of a negative one. Achieve destruction would be a bit weird, no? Okay. And this example is taken from actually my class. Every year, actually every semester, we teach an essay at Waseda on why should students study abroad? And quite often students get confused. Is it widen horizons or should it be broaden horizons? So what do you think? Are we widening our horizons or are we broadening our horizons? Okay, so I see a broaden. Okay, I see one widen. Someone's going against the grain. Okay, so I'm not too sure. So to answer this question, once again, you can do a comparison search. So you just pop in the words. Collocates, I used a noun because because horizons is a noun. That's why. And I only want two words behind because that's the one that gave me the best results and the most easy to understand data. Okay, so we have broaden, and look here at number 9. So the answer is broaden. Over here, there's no horizon, even if you keep searching. But what you can see is widen, a road, a gap, a stance. Okay, so these are things that are more like concrete nouns. And broaden could be something that's more abstract a bit, like broaden your mind. Broaden your mind like way of thinking, appeal or base or knowledge. But these look like, simple concrete. So widen the road. All right. Um, you can also do it this way with commonly misunderstood collocations. Is it strong coffee or is the coffee powerful? No. Hmm. I learned from my students too. But, so I've got a strong coffee. Strong coffee. Okay, maybe a weak coffee. All right. And here, if we use Scout, you can see the interface is much simpler. Go to the website, put in the word, push word sketch, and then you'll get a lot of different results that you can look at. But what I looked at in particular were the adjectives, because I wanted to know about an adjective, because strong and powerful are an adjective. So you can see at number 2, it's strong coffee. And there's no powerful here. So what you could do if you're creating a type of worksheet with your students is 1, choose a choice you know is correct, and 2, choose a choice that they usually get confused about, and then have them search for it themselves. But make sure you tell them where to search. So you'd have to tell them, hey, look at adjectives with coffee. Or you can do what I did and just take screenshots and put it into your worksheet or presentation. Okay. So you can also use this isn't a question, but quite often students get confused about prepositions, which words usually used with which. So you can use this to figure out what word, for example, would usually be used with turn. So you can see the most common would be over, down, on, off, around, away, etc. And what's good about this, if you click the blue link, you'd be able to get sentences using turn over. So you would have students go through the concordance lines as well, and you could see what the examples are. So this is also good for a quick check on your phrasal verbs, which all students love. Okay, something just to clear up. Sometimes I'm confused, and maybe you're confused too. What's the difference between a colligation and a connotation? Colligation would be something like this: determiner, noun plus verb, article plus noun plus prep. And the collocation would be the words directly associated with it. So they're both about word association, but the colligation is more like breaking it down. And you'll see some type of stuff like this in natural language processing and in machine learning, because this would allow the computer to understand what's going to happen next, like if it's trying to predict your text or something. So like if I was writing, I'm going, and then maybe we want an adjective, we could see from the previous example that the computer might propose something like crazy, right? I'm going crazy, going mad, or going viral, something like that could be something associated with it. Okay, so gap time. Right, so we're going to talk a bit about teaching new vocabulary. So there are a lot of vocabulary lists out there done by frequency, but I find a few problems with them. One, it just tells you the word. And they're quite often like, what is it, lemmatized? They don't have lemmas or like word forms. So sometimes we expect our students to understand how to change a word, like collection, but they don't know all the time that these two words are associated with each other. So by just showing them the word and giving them the definition, maybe in Japanese, it doesn't really help so much. So I feel when they learn a new word, they should learn the words that are commonly associated with it. So they should know the collocations, they should know the colligations, so they know when and where to use the word. So if they know the definition of the word, great, but what do they do with that? Okay. So I've got a challenge for you. I'm hoping you don't know the word obfuscate. And what I want you to do, I did a search in Coca, and I also did a search in Skell. So you've got words that are usually associated with it. So nouns, you know it's a verb. Adjectives that are usually connected to it, verbs, adverbs. And here I pulled out some kind of sentences. So what do you think the word obfuscate means? Oh, by the way, the ones with the darker blue are the closest associations, and as it goes down to lighter colors, they're less associated. So when it's white, there's some connection, but it's not that much. All right. Someone knows what it means already. Other ones, for the rest of you who don't know what it means, what do you think it could mean? Okay. So one person thinks it's obscure the meaning on purpose. Anyone else? What do you think? Intentionally avoiding the truth? Maybe I should have chosen a different word like promulgate. Would have been harder. Maybe try to ignore something? Okay. Well, let's look at certain words here. We've got truth, we've got a lie, we've got confuse. We have deliberately, intentionally. So deliberately and intentionally is going to tell us this person, whoever is doing whatever obfuscating is, it's going to be done on purpose, right? So probably we can say that they're purposely lying, or maybe they're hiding the truth. Obviously, I would not choose a word that's so difficult for my students, and I do it based on their vocabulary level. Okay, some of you were correct. Obfuscate means to make something unclear, deliberately. Okay, so points for you who would do well on the GRE where this book is from. I mean, that word was from. Okay. Also, something else you can do when you're teaching new words is you can create your own corpus and you can give them a list of words that are generally associated with the topic you're choosing. So every semester, no, every quarter, yeah, we also do an argumentative essay on what surveillance is. So what I did was I just put surveillance into the list and I saved my list. And then I looked up adjectives. So now I can give my students a list of adjectives and also they can look up sentences to look up what this word means, I mean, and how to use it. Yeah, this one surveillance. And at the top, you can also use ones to use the nouns, the verbs, adverbs. You can also look at noun-noun connections if they exist in there, and the adjective-noun connections. So this could be used also for ESP. So if you have people working in engineering, what you can do is you can kind of tease out the words that they could use. Okay. So in conclusion, Corpora are a good source of natural language input. So it's good if they're having this kind of foggy, like not foggy, like something makes sense with the grammar, but it wouldn't make sense because it's not preferred usage. So they could look at it and see, ah, this is how it works. Also, it lets the students make their own inferences, so they're probably going to pay more attention. I don't know about you, but when I'm learning Japanese and someone tells me, ah, this is what the word is in Japanese, I go, great. And then 5 seconds later, I've completely forgotten what they have said. So by seeing it and by interacting with the material, it's more likely that students will remember it. Also, they can show how and when to use the words. So if, for me, I teach academic writing, and I can show students if the word is academic or not, like the word a lot of. So I could do a chart search and see, do you see this in academic writing? No, don't use a lot of. What else can you do with it? There's also a search function on Coca where you can analyze text. So you could see how many words would be academic in an essay. I didn't show this in this presentation, but I think I've done it in another one before, as I'm apparently a YouTuber now. Yeah, so that's it. Here are a bunch of references, more references. And if you want to talk to me, that's my information. It's just my first name. Okay, and